Okay, let's look at the first module that we're going to be doing in Mission 3, Finch Control. Remember, we're going to be kind of connecting up our Finch and then adding 5 different modules over the next 6 weeks or so. Now, one of the things that we've done is you can see, kind of giving you some directions here, but we're going to be doing some things that are new here, and I'll talk about those along the way. First, I want you to note that there is a place here where you can download the starter solution for the Finch Control project. And this starter solution has it's all laid out. It has a menuing system, and we'll walk through it. It's actually set up so that all you really need to do is to start building out your modules to complete the specified tasks for the Finch. So if you go to it, just so if you take a look at it, you go to it, you'll see that it is in GitHub, and that you can download it by clicking over here. Download it as a zip file, put it where you would like, and also be sure to unzip it before you run it, because it won't run without unzipping it. Okay, let's go back here. You'll see that the instructions are here, and then there's a couple 3 tasks. So you will be beginning in this project and for the rest of the semester, you'll be submitting your assignment not by zipping it and uploading the zip file, but instead pushing, that's the term, your application to GitHub, and then providing a link to your application on GitHub. Also, I'll be asking you to create a quick streaming video walking me through your application. And that's really helpful for me, because sometimes some of you will take some liberties and do some really interesting things, and I want to make sure that I'm able to see everything that you do. So you'll just do a video walking through. You can feel free to kind of record the screen. Don't worry about, I know we've got a robot off on the side doing some things. Don't worry about trying to show that video to me unless you really would like to. In particular, the first one, the talent show, maybe if you know how, you want to capture a video of your robot doing the cool things that it's going to do. But other than that, you can just go ahead and send me a video of just kind of the application running and walk me through step by step kind of how you're doing that. Last but not least, and that's a part of all of our projects, there is a skills checklist associated with each of these benchmarks. So make sure that you get that filled out and submitted that to that. And then you'll see here are 2 tutorials. Here's a tutorial that will walk you through using screencast as your video capture, and how to save that and snag the URL that you'll be needing to submit. And here's another video that shows you how to create a Visual Studio solution, fairly quickly, simple one, how to add source control, and then how to save it and push it to GitHub, and then snag the link from GitHub so that you can submit that. All right, so those are all there. Look at those at your leisure. Download the instructions. So if we go here, you'll see here the instructions for the talent show. Now the idea here is that the Finch robot has the ability to kind of emit sounds, tones, and that. It has the ability to control its lights. It has a red, green, blue, and blue LEDs that you can kind of control how bright each of those colors are, and then using a wait command, how long those lights are on. And on top of that, we have motion, so you can kind of set the Finch to dancing if you like and move it around. And if you take a look here, you'll see we've got some screens laid out. We've got some of these screens that we've already kind of created, and this talks specifically about some of the other screens that are going to kind of that are going to control the finch. And you can see it's broken down here. We have also display the connect finch, display disconnect finch. Both of these are already built in for you, and the talent show is the one that you're going to be working. So this is kind of laid out in text. In a lot of ways, I think it's a whole lot easier to go and take a look at the code. But while we're here, let's go ahead and take a look at the skills list and see what it is that I'm looking for you to demonstrate to me. So make sure that you are able to push and pull code to and from GitHub. At this point, really, you'll mostly be pushing it up, which is just fine. You're going to create some methods that don't require arguments. You're going to create some methods that require one or more arguments. You're going to create some methods that return a value. It's going to be important to look at and make sure that you are following the single responsibility principle as you develop those methods. Remember that the single responsibility principle basically is that each method should only do one task. And the name of that method, interestingly, should be relevant to just the one task that it performs. You're going to develop a menu system using a switch case block. You're going to connect and disconnect from the finch. You're going to declare and instantiate an object. That sounds really fancy, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to create an object, a finch robot object, that is going to allow us to interact with the finch. I'll show that to you in the code. You're going to control the LEDs and the tones. You're going to control some movement. You can play a song if you like. That's kind of a little bit of an extended skill, and I'll show you. I have some links that'll help you out setting tones to specific notes. And you're going to combine all of those and so kind of do a little dance routine or something, whatever. Get creative. Really what I'm looking for is just that you can actually control the finch's functionality. And then, of course, we're going to continue to look at validation, making sure that you validate all of the string values that are coming in and the numerical values that are coming in. So if we go back to here, we were there. Let's take a look at the solution that I've created to give you an idea of the overall structure. Okay, so here's the application. You can see that I have all of these closed down. Here's the main method. And remember, the main method is where everything starts, when the program starts. And so it's going to run a method called setTheme. That method is down here. And you'll see that all that method does is change the foreground and the background. Okay. Next, it's going to run a welcome screen, and then a main menu screen, and then a closing screen. So I've added a whole bunch of these for you. So the welcome screen and the closing screen are down here in the user interface. So if I expand that region, you'll see here's your welcome screen. Pretty straightforward, what we've been doing all along. There's a closing screen right here. If I expand that, you can see, again, same thing, doing what we do all along. Okay, and I've got some others built in here. So I have our continue prompt, which we've been using. So there's that right line, the feedback, or I should say the prompt for the user, and then the read key. And so this actually acts as our pause so that the screen doesn't go off. I have a display menu prompt. Now this is a method that you'll notice actually has a parameter called menu name, because I realized that we were going to have multiple menus and I didn't want to have a separate method for each of those menus. And so this allows me to send the menu name, and you'll see that in the code up top. And so you'll see press any key to return to the, and this string, the menu name, gets recorded here, menu. So the first time we'll actually call it using talent show. So it'll say press any key to return to the talent show menu. Okay, so we have that there, and this is our header. Okay, and you can see that the header, and in fact I'll open this up, you'll see that the header and the menu prompt are both methods that basically take a string and use that string in a console write line. Okay, so this header uses the This display screen header uses the header text that is sent to it. And you can see here are a couple of tabs, and so that the header text goes into the middle of the screen. So those are all there for you to use anytime you want. So I'm going to go ahead and close that region up. Okay. We've also added, and you'll find this in the starter solution, you'll see that there is a display disconnect and a display connect. Let me open the connect up first. Okay. And you'll see that one of the important things here is that whenever we work with the robot, whenever we have a method that works with the robot, we have to make sure that we pass the robot object. Okay, we pass that robot object to the method. Notice here, Finch is a class, it's a type. And so just like down in the header, we had a string and it said string and header text. Here we have Finch, which is a type, it's a class, and we have Finch robot. And then if you kind of work through this, you'll see that I've set up some variables, and then I call my display screen header. And remember again, the display screen header is a method that allows us to send some text to it, and it will build out our screen header for us. There is a prompt and then a continue prompt here to just pause for the user. It's always a good idea whenever you have a user who asks, or basically in this case they're going to be clicking on a menu to come here and to do something. It's always a good idea to just kind of pause on that screen or kind of provide a pop-up or something depending on your user interface, and just let the user know again what it is that they've kind of requested and what it is that that's about to happen, and then give them the option to proceed. So that's what's going on here. It says you're about to connect to the Finch robot. Please be sure the USB cable is connected to the robot and the computer now. So we've given them a little bit more information, just saying, hey, you know what, before we actually do this, make sure that this is up and running. And then you'll see here the robot connected. This is a Boolean variable. Remember, that's a true-false variable. So we are going to go to the Finch robot, and we are going to run the connect method, and that connect method is going to do two things. One is it's going to go and connect to the Finch robot, and then it's going to report back to us with either a true or false value if whether that connection was good or not. And once it connects to the Finch robot or doesn't connect to the Finch robot, it sends that true false value back. We store the true false value here. Then we use that value. So if robot connected, so if the Finch robot.connect method sends back a true, then we are indeed connected, in which case we run this, and this is just a little bit of audio video, AV, a little bit of lights and tones to let them know that they were successful. Okay, if they were not successful, we should probably give them a message here. So what I would suggest to you is get in here and come up with an appropriate message. So we'll put something here to remind us that we should do this. So provide user feedback. Now we have not really set up a loop here. So what's going to happen is they're just going to get some feedback. You might want to kind of reiterate that they should check to see if everything's been plugged in or not. And then they're going to basically go right back to the main menu. Okay, at which point, if they want to connect again, they're going to have to run this again. So, feel free. This is a really straightforward, kind of a simple interface I set up. Feel free to do any type of validation you feel you want to do. The one thing I would caution you about, if you do set up some validation in here with the user to make sure that the Finch robot is connected, that you give them a way out, because we don't want to kind of get them caught in this eternal loop as they try and connect to the Finch. Okay, coming down here, you'll see that I just kind of reset the Finch robot so that when I leave here, the lights are off and the tones are off. Okay, so that's the Finch Connect. The disconnect functionality is a whole lot easier. When we disconnect from the Finch, the disconnect method down here that we run does not return any kind of a value. It just disconnects. You need to make sure that we need to make sure that we actually do disconnect for a couple of reasons. One is it's just a good coding practice that we do a little bit of housekeeping and we close down and make sure, like whenever we're working with some type of external device, in this case it's our Finch robot, we want to make sure that we do all the housekeeping and we shut it down, and that we don't just somehow end our program while our Finch is heading off into the sunset and then we don't ever get any control over it. The other reason is that Visual Studio has in the past kind of locked up, i.e. it doesn't really lock up. It just the program doesn't shut down if you don't explicitly disconnect from the Finch. Okay, so there's the layout there, and I'm going to close that up. And so go back up here. So there is, again, kind of we run the theme, we run the welcome screen, there's a closing screen. So we run the main menu. So now the main menu is where all of this happens. So if I come down here, you'll see here's our main menu screen. And I'm going to open that up. And you'll see it's a relatively long method. But there's not a whole lot going on here. So if you take a look at it, you'll see that I make sure that at the beginning of every one of these, I make sure that my cursor, in this case, I should say I explicitly decide whether my cursor is visible or not visible. I create this Boolean called quit application. And I will use that Boolean in my do while as a way of either continuing the loop or exiting the loop. There's this kind of general string menu choice. The other thing that's important is that right here is where we actually create that Finch object. Okay, so this is Finch. Finch robot is the name of it. And whenever we create objects, we'll talk more specifically about this about week 12. Whenever we create object, we always have to say new Finch. So we kind of get in the habit of saying, and we almost say, almost like a jingle, it's Finch robot equals a new Finch. Sometimes you'll see something like my Finch equals a new Finch. You're going to see that commonly out there when you go to Stack Overload in that overflow. So this right here creates our Finch object, and what we know is that this Finch object actually lives in the heap. And now we have this Finch object, and we're going to be able to pass that around, and by passing that around, we're able to actually control the Finch robot. Okay, so if we come into our do loop, so let's notice that this is a do while loop. I chose to use a do while. You could probably do it with a while. And notice that I bail out of this loop, out of the menu, when we choose to quit the application. Okay, so when quit application is equal to true, i.e. they've chosen Q for quit, then not true is false, and we fall out. Now, remember that in terms of how we call these methods, that if we go back up here to our main, notice that after we call the welcome screen, we call the main menu. All the while that we're operating our application, we stay up here, I should say down in here, we stay in this the main menu screen method. Okay, well, what I should say is we don't go back to the main. So we continue to call various methods from our main menu. Now, when we leave the main menu, we go back to the main method, and this method is then done, and then we drop down here and we run the closing screen. So that's the flow of the program. Set the theme, throw the welcome screen, go to the main menu, run the application with the user doing whatever and whenever they want, and when they quit the main menu, we return here and run the closing screen, and then the application closes down. So that's kind of the flow of the program. If we go back and take a look at our menu, now we've got our screen header up here. We've sent it some text so it knows what to display. And you can see I've kind of built out a main menu kind of skeleton for you to use. Feel free to change it as you wish. So as long as you are demonstrating to me those skills, you're free to kind of change this around. I'll expect to see in your video walkthrough if you make any changes to this. Just kind of, share with me. Talk to me about any changes you might have decided to make. I know a number of you are going to want to change the the menu and maybe make it flow a little bit better. So feel free to do that. So we present that to the user, and the user gives us a response. And right now we have basically 4 responses. So we can connect to the Finch, and then we call that method that I showed you before. We can disconnect to the Finch. We call that method. Oh, I'm sorry, right here. We disconnect from the Finch, and we call that method. Or they quit. Now notice that when they quit, we also need to make sure that we disconnect from the Finch, and we set our quit application equal to true. The default down here is if they provide, so we're validating their input. So if they provide us with a letter that is not one of the letters specifically in these case statements, then we give them a little love note here that says, hey, we need a proper menu choice, and that cycles them back up into here. And so we redisplay. Basically what we do is we reset the screen, we display a main menu header, we give them the menu, and we allow them to make the choice again. Okay, so here we go. Notice that we have passed the Finch robot object to every single method that needs to use the Finch. Make sure that you only, whenever you're coding this up, make sure that you only see a new Finch. So you only see Finch robot equals a new Finch. That's only in one spot, and that should live in the main menu. Okay, and that's the Finch robot that you should pass. Everybody should be using this same Finch robot. So don't be tempted to put one of these inside of a method further down into the application. Okay, now what we want to do is take a quick look at this menu. Now there's a couple ways just to show you, we could actually go and find this, and if we go and look for it, it'll be right here under Talent Show, and there's that menu. Another one, once you start building these things out, it gets pretty long. So another Visual Studio trick is kind of nice, is that if you put the cursor in a method call, so we're I'm sorry, I gotta come up here. Put the cursor in the method call, so like where we actually call that method. And if you push F12, you're gonna find that it jumps down and gets you to that method. So here's our method again, and you'll see that this menu, I'm not gonna run through it. You'll notice that this menu looks exactly, I won't say exactly, it's structured exactly like the main menu. And I've given you some examples. Please feel free to kind of change these however you like. I've given you some examples, and if you kind of complete these examples here, you're going to be demonstrating to me what you need to demonstrate. Okay, so here's our main menu. Our main menu is now going to call display light and sound, display dance, and display mixing it up. Notice that we pass the Finch object to the main to the Talent Show menu, and then we pass that same Finch object on along to each of these. So it's kind of like this game of hot potato, or I don't know, pick your game, maybe post office or whatever. But anyways, the my Finch, in this case we're using my Finch, and my Finch is getting passed along to each of these methods. It is important to note that, and I did this specifically, is that this name here does not need to be the same as the name when this method was called. Okay, it could be, and usually it is. This time I chose just so that you'd be able to see that it doesn't matter. It's okay. We've kind of given it this alias. So when it's operating, when the Finch object is operating in this menu, it's my Finch. Okay. So now let's just go ahead and take a look at these methods, and these are really simple, and I'll expect to see you guys do some more on your part. So if I hit F12, I'm going to jump down here, okay, and you can see that there's the display light and sound, and I have it roughed in here, so we've passed it. We're now back using Finch Robot. We could have called it Susie. It's okay. It doesn't really matter. We've got our screen header. I don't know why it keeps popping up, so I apologize that it keeps popping up. And then I just kind of created this for loop, and if I ran it right now, and again, I don't have a camera on my Finch, if I ran it, you would find that the sound would cycle. You can kind of see that it runs from 0 to 255, and it goes up, multiplies by 100. So you'd find that the sound and the lights would get brighter and the sound would go up. Please feel free to play around with it and get something else out of it that you want. I'm just going to jump down and show you. Here's the dance routine that I created, and this one right here is called the waddle. And you can see that basically I'm just switching between. I turn on my left wheel, I wait a second, and then I turn off my left wheel, turn on my right wheel, wait a second, and so this causes the Finch robot to waddle back and forth. This one is forces the Finch robot to make a square. So I go forward at a speed of 100 for 3 seconds. I then basically stop. I have set the Finch robot so the left wheel goes backward and the right wheel goes forward. That causes the Finch robot to turn left. And if I run that for a second on my carpet, that's really close, and then stop it. This right here is really close to a 90-degree turn. So you'll see this is the straight leg of my square. This is the 90-degree turn. Here's another straight leg. Here's another 90-degree turn. And you can see I repeat that 4 times, and that causes the Finch to go around in a square. Figure out what you want your Finch to do in the dance mode. Have some fun with it. Mixing it up. Now, this is a method that basically sets the Finch up so that it plays London Bridge and it dances at the same time. So, oops, I'm sorry. Keep hitting that. And there you go. And I realized that I borrowed, oh, I know where it is. It's up here. I didn't open this up. Okay, I borrowed this with permission from one of our past students, Anna Parsons, who had this course, and she built this out. And you'll see that there are some notes. So there's a note 392, that's a frequency, and that's obviously a quarter of a second. There's another note for a quarter of a second. All the while, she has the motors going and she has the lights going. And so this is a really nice song and dance routine. Okay, she built it out and she put some time into developing this. So there you have it, playing London Bridge and lights and movement all to boot. Okay, so there is my simple solution that I wanted to share with you. You'll need to build out your solution. I'm just trying to close all these guys up now. And I'll close this one back up just so you can kind of see that structure. So these guys are built for you. Here's your talent show. You have a menu. You have 3 methods that you need to kind of build out. And this is the main menu that goes to that. So get in there and poke at it and see how it goes. Let me run it really quickly so you can see how it functions. So up will come the Finch control, or the Finch control opening screen. If I hit a tab, you'll see I can kind of connect to my Finch robot. And so let me see here. My Finch robot is, I'll pretend like I'm connected to it. And so I'm going to connect to the robot. This is the prompt I told you about. About to connect to the Finch robot. Make sure everything's plugged in. And it says press any key to return to the main menu. My robot was not plugged in, so I didn't get my little trill there. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? My problem is I'm running out of USB ports on my computer, so I think that I'm not going to be able to show that to you directly. You'll have to take my word for it. There is the talent show, so if I hit B, you'll see I actually jump to the talent show menu, and then I can go to A, and the Finch robot will now show it off. This is again an example of, okay, we're not jumping right into the Finch doing its thing. We're going to let the user know that, hey, we're about to do this, and then we press any key, and it's going to go through its routine. And then it's going to allow me to return to the main menu, or to the talent show menu, and I'm going to be able to cycle through. So that's what I'm looking for, is for you to kind of build your menu out with the methods that you create, and allow the menu to kind of walk through and demonstrate those methods. If I hit Q, you'll see I go back to the main menu. If I had a Finch hooked up, I should probably go to Finch disconnect at this point. It warns me that I'm about to disconnect. Finch robot is now disconnected. We know that it really wasn't connected, but it's now disconnected. I go back, and now I can quit, and you'll see that it runs disconnect just to be sure. There's a way to fix that. We'll do that in a later video. And if I hit spacebar, it says it's now disconnected. Again, we know it was already disconnected. And we cycle back to the main menu. Actually, we don't cycle back to the menu. I'm sorry, we hit quit. And so at this point, we hit the spacebar because we're at the closing screen. All right, let me go quickly. I'm going to minimize this and just show you one more thing. So down here under the resources, for those of you who want to actually play a song, there's some information here. So I am not a musical person, but if you click on this, you'll see that if you have some music, this is going to allow you to convert that music to a specific frequency. So like I said, if you have music on a staff, you can convert that to a specific frequency, and you can then use those in the Finch robot. On top of that, let me go back. If it goes back, you can use this, and this is going to be a larger chart. And for those of you who are really into music, you'll see that here are your notes, and then here are your octaves. I'll say that you probably are not going to get the Finch in this region, octave 0. You're probably not going to hear a whole lot of that, although you can play with your Finch. And also, it's going to be a little bit difficult once you kind of get up into here. Octave 10, octave 9, you probably will be able to see it. But anyways, so I would just suggest that you stay in these frequencies here to create your song. So I'm going to go back here. All right, so that's the walkthrough. It was a little long because I needed to show you the starter solution and how that's built out. So when you open that up, you'll see that there's a lot of what we talked about already in there, and then you just need to add your methods so that you can demonstrate to me the things that you need to demonstrate to me for the talent show. There you go, and please contact me with any questions you may have. Have a good day.